So what if I told you that the ultimate cure for your overwhelming, chaotic daily information diet wasn't, a new productivity app or some kind of intense time management seminar, but actually a neon lit 30-second sci-fi arcade game?
I mean, I would probably ask if I need to bring a roll of quarters, first of all.
Right? Yeah.
And then I'd ask how dodging glowing shapes on a screen is supposed to help me uh, synthesize a week's worth of dry research notes.
Exactly. It sounds totally absurd on its face. Because usually when we think about processing information, like catching up on industry reading or prepping for a big meeting, there's this universal expectation of dread.
Oh, absolute dread.
You stare at a screen full of text, you highlight things, you try to force your brain to care. It just feels static. It feels like an administrative chore.
It's a really heavy cognitive burden that we just sort of accept. Like, we view it as the necessary tax of being a professional or a student in the modern world. You sit slouched in a chair and you just passively absorb text.
Right. But today, we are throwing that entire paradigm out the window. We are exploring a highly unique, honestly deeply strange source from a publication called Magazine, which is Bibebibebibe Magazine, published on May 30th, 2026.
Very recent.
Yeah. And the piece introduces a project called Notebook Architect, the synthesis game. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack how this source blends the seemingly dry task of academic research with intense, high-stakes sci-fi world building.
Which is quite the combination.
It really is. And more importantly, we're going to decode what its mysterious creators are actually trying to tell you, the listener, about how you process information in your own daily life.
Because on the surface, you are looking at a browser game. But as you dig into the surrounding text, it becomes incredibly clear that this is functioning as profound commentary on our modern information landscape. The creators are using interactive media to make a very specific, very sharp argument about human attention.
So let's start with the actual mechanics of Notebook Architect, at least as they are described in the source text. When you boot this up, you take on the role of the architect. And your job is to navigate this glowing knowledge map.
Right.
You are trying to collect fragments of something called SH1 data and true flow lore.
Which, I just have to say, the terminology alone reframes the objective entirely.
How so?
Well, you aren't compiling the bibliography. You are collecting lore. It introduces narrative stakes into what is essentially data aggregation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the text emphasizes that this happens under intense pressure. You have a 30-second timer ticking down, and as you try to synthesize these sources, there are literally distractions and obstacles drifting across the campus that you have to physically dodge with your cursor or your keyboard.
Yeah, they are literal hazards.
Right, it's like a frantic arcade game. Think of Pac-Man or Asteroids, but instead of dodging ghosts or rocks, you are literally dodging distractions to synthesize your research. And if you manage to do it under this pressure, your reward is this visceral burst of light and sound and a celebration as your map expands.
What's fascinating here is the cognitive shift happening in that moment. Gathering information today is inherently difficult, right? It's chaotic.
Oh, completely.
We are constantly bombarded by digital drift. Notifications popping up, endless feeds, competing narratives that pull our focus away. What Notebook Architect does is it takes those abstract mental distractions and physicalizes them.
I'm trying to picture the mental friction here. It's like trying to cook a complicated 5-course meal, but every 30 seconds someone throws a ping pong ball at your head.
That is a very stressful but very accurate analogy.
Right. You have to keep track of the recipe, monitor the stove, and dodge the projectiles all at the exact same time. It physicalizes the mental tax of context switching.
Exactly. That is a perfect way to visualize it, because when you're reading an article online and 5 different tabs are blinking at you, your brain is doing the equivalent of dodging ping pong balls.
Yeah, that's so true.
By gamifying this process, by making the distractions literal objects you have to dodge on a glowing map within a strict 30-second window, the game transforms you from a passive consumer of information into an active defender of your own attention.
Wow, an active defender.
Right. You were surviving an informational hazard. And the neurochemical reward, that burst of light and sound at the end, it actually hijacks the exact same dopamine pathways that usually keep us doom scrolling, but it redirects them toward the act of synthesis.
That is wild. So you're surviving this hazard of distraction to collect this SH1 data and true flow lore. But to understand what those things actually are, we really have to look at the institutional framework that surrounds this game.
Yes, the wrapper. so to speak.
Because this isn't just presented as like an indie game floating out there in the void. It comes wrapped in this incredibly dense, almost intimidating academic facade.
The surrounding context is meticulously constructed to mimic high-level academia. It's fascinating. The project is tied to something called the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies 9X.
And it proudly states that it is certified and founded by a Dr. Melvin Sewell, M.Sc. Ph.D. His official title is Academic Dean and Diagnostic Architect.
That's a great title.
It is. And they even provide a link to his supposed previous academic work. And I have to read the title of his paper because it's amazing. It is called Quantum Consciousness Transfer Across Universes, a category theoretic formalization of the true flow force.
It is truly a breathtaking piece of titular engineering.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I have to pause here. This is where my brain starts short-circuiting. When you read a title like that, there is this immediate impulse to respect it, or at least, feel slightly intimidated by it.
Naturally, yeah.
It has all the hallmarks of a serious, peer-reviewed journal. But we are talking about a fictional cosmic university and a mystical force called True Flow. Why go through the incredible trouble of wrapping a sci-fi arcade game in such heavy, impenetrable academic jargon? Like, why use terms like category theoretic formalization?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to the aesthetic of authority and how our brains process credibility.
Okay.
As a society, we are deeply conditioned to defer to certain markers. When we see M.Sc, Ph.D., or words like formalization and quantum, our critical defenses often just lower automatically.
Yeah, we assume the information is valid because it wears the clothing of institutional rigor.
Exactly.
Like, we don't actually know what category theory is, but we assume the person using the word is smarter than us, so we just nod along.
Right, and category theory is actually a highly complex branch of mathematics that deals with abstract structures and relationships. By slapping a real term like that next to something absurd like quantum consciousness transfer, the creator is hacking your cognitive biases.
Wait. So they're blending the real and the fake to mess with us.
Precisely. The juxtaposition creates this deliberate blurring of lines between reality and fiction. You find yourself asking, wait, is Dr. Melvin Sewell a real academic? Is the Cosmic University a real think tank?
And in that moment of hesitation, you are experiencing the very thing the game is trying to teach you.
Yes.
You're being forced to question what constitutes a valid source of information. It's basically holding up a mirror to how easily we are swayed by jargon and titles and neat formatting. We see a crisp PDF with a university logo and we just, swallow whatever it says.
The creator is weaponizing the aesthetics of academia to make a point about our own gullibility. If they can make you momentarily believe in Echo Rift Studies IX just by using the right font and the right acronyms, imagine how easily real-world actors can manipulate you using that exact same playbook.
Which brings us to the most jarring part of this entire source document, and we really need to take a step back here because the whiplash is intense.
It really is.
We just went from a discussion about a neon-lit, Pac-Man-style browser game to a fake academic paper. And now, at the very bottom of the page, the text drops the playful mechanics and the academic roleplay entirely. It just drops it to deliver a sovereign diagnostic disclaimer.
The tone shifts completely.
Utterly. I'm looking at these words, actor convergence, systemic erosion, and it sounds like a geopolitical manifesto, not a video game. What on earth is happening here?
The disclaimer is essentially the key that unlocks the entire project.
Yeah.
The creators explicitly state that this site, the Echo Rift Films, and the Sovereign Diagnostics are not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group.
They're severing ties.
Right, they're forcefully severing themselves from the real-world political spectrum.
They write that all the materials are authored as, quote, mythic infrastructure, a cinematic indictment, and a sovereign broadcast. And their stated purpose is to expose ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion.
It's heavy language.
Very. And the site makes a huge point of emphasizing that its interpretations, glyphs, and collapse protocols are purely diagnostic tools. They are absolutely not political endorsements. So what does this all mean? As someone just trying to make sense of this, how does a game about dodging glowing shapes connect to this heavy political language? What is actor convergence?
Let's break down those terms because they really reveal why this whole elaborate structure even exists in the first place.
Yeah.
Systemic erosion refers to the slow kind of inevitable degrading of our societal systems. Our media, our trust in institutions, our ability to agree on basic facts.
Right. Feels like everything is just kind of crumbling at the edges.
Exactly. And then ritualized containment suggests that we are trapped in these predictable ceremonial patterns of behavior that basically prevent any real change from happening.
Oh, I think I see where you're going with this. It's like the daily cycle of social media outrage. A new story drops, one side is furious, the other side is incredibly defensive, everyone types out their perfectly rehearsed arguments, and by tomorrow, literally nothing has changed. We just repeat the ritual with a new trending topic.
That is a textbook example of ritualized containment.
Mm.
And actor convergence is when everyone, politicians, media personalities, and even us, the citizens, we all just play our expected role in that broken system. We converge on the script.
Wow.
And this raises an important question, because the creators of this project recognize that you cannot effectively critique a broken system using the language and the politics of that exact same system.
Because the moment you try to do that, people immediately put you in a box.
Yes.
Like if I write a serious essay about the systemic erosion of modern media and I post it online, readers are just going to scan it for keywords. They'll say, oh, this uses left-wing vocabulary, or, oh, this sounds like right-wing talking points.
Yep, they filter it immediately.
And the very second they categorize it, their tribal defenses go up and they stop listening entirely. They just shut down.
And so the message is contained. Ritualized containment. So what is the alternative? This is where that concept of mythic infrastructure comes in. The creators decided to just build a completely new myth.
Right.
They built the Echo Wrist Archive. They invented a cosmic university and Dr. Melvin Sewell. They created a clean, totally uncontaminated laboratory.
That's a great way to put it.
Because in this fictional sci-fi universe, they can safely diagnose the very real problems of our own world without triggering any real-world political tribalism.
So the sci-fi becomes the ultimate Trojan horse. You think you're just reading some cool lore about an alternate dimension or playing a quirky browser game, but you're actually absorbing a sovereign broadcast about the erosion of our own world. You're evaluating human behavior without the heavy baggage of real-world names and political parties attached to it.
It is a diagnostic tool masquerading as entertainment. And we actually get to see exactly how this mythic infrastructure plays out, like how they seed this diagnostic tool into the narrative in a brief snippet provided at the very end of the source material.
Oh, right, the foundational text. It's titled Chapter 1 Origin, and it is incredibly short. It's just one sentence, but it carries the weight of everything we've just unpacked.
It really does.
It says, Saikou Venga emerges from the rift, born between slip flow and counterflow, marked by SH1 resonance. And it notes the copyrights are attributed to Saikou Venga, the Echo Rift Archive, and Bibebibebibe Studio. But wait a minute. SH1 resonance, that is the exact same SH1 data that the player is frantically collecting as the architect in that 30-second game.
Yes. The loop closes perfectly. The frantic arcade mechanics and the deep philosophical lore are completely intertwined.
So when I'm playing this game, dodging the physical embodiments of distraction to, piece together my notes, I'm not just doing some abstract productivity exercise. I am actively uncovering the lore of Saikou Venga. I am participating in the myth.
You are. The game is the mechanism by which you engage with the mythic infrastructure. You, as the player, are navigating the tension between what the text calls the slip flow and the counterflow.
Born between slip flow and counterflow. Okay, if the stated goal of this entire project is to provide a diagnostic tool for our reality, we really need to translate those terms for the listener. Like, what does it look like to be in the slip flow versus the counterflow on just a random Tuesday morning?
Right, let's ground it. If we interpret slip flow as the path of least resistance, it is the algorithmic feed. It is the endless scroll.
Oh, man.
It is the easy, passive acceptance of whatever information is handed to you by a slickly formatted article or a confident-sounding influencer. The slip flow just washes over you, and it requires zero cognitive friction.
It's mindlessly retweeting a sensational headline without ever actually clicking the link to read the article. You're just letting the current take you.
Exactly. So counterflow, then, is the deliberate resistance to that current. It is the active and often really uncomfortable work of pushing back.
Yeah.
It's taking 30 seconds to cross-reference a claim, seeking out an alternative perspective, or even just sitting with the discomfort of realizing that your initial assumption might have been wrong.
Which nobody likes to do.
No, it's hard.
Yeah.
But Saikou Venga is born in the friction between those two states. And as the architect in the game, collecting SH1 data while dodging distractions, you are operating in that exact same friction.
You're trying to build a map of the truth while being constantly pulled by the current of the slip flow. And I think that brings this massive abstract concept directly down to earth for you, the listener. Because why does a bizarre sci-fi synthesis game actually matter to your daily life?
Well, because it is a direct challenge to the way you consume information.
Hmm.
We have all been trained to sit back and passively receive the news. We just let the slip flow dictate our understanding of the world.
Which leaves us incredibly vulnerable to the ritualized containment and systemic erosion that the disclaimer warned us about. Because if you are only passively consuming, you are really just another convergence actor playing a role.
That's the danger.
Right. And this project, Notebook Architect, argues that to truly understand complex information today, you cannot afford to be passive. You have to be an architect. You have to actively build your own knowledge map. You have to recognize the digital drift, the notifications, the rage beat, the algorithmic suggestions for what they are. They are literal obstacles designed to keep you from synthesizing the truth.
And it makes a really compelling case that sometimes the absolute best way to see the stark reality of our own world is through the protective, clarifying lens of a myth.
Yeah, it demands that you take ownership of your cognitive processing. The creators are basically offering you the glyphs and the collapse protocols, right? The tools to understand the system. But you are the one who has to do the grueling work of assembly under pressure. They can't do the synthesis for you.
No, they can't.
So let's look at the immense journey we've taken today on this deep dive. We started with what appeared to be just a quirky 30-second online productivity game, dodging neon shapes to build a map.
Right. Sounds simple enough.
But from there, we walked the seemingly hallowed, jargon-filled halls of the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies 9X, peeling back the facade of academic credentialism and exploring exactly why our brains defer to authority.
Unpacking our own biases.
Exactly. And finally, we encountered a severe philosophical pivot, a piece of mythic infrastructure meticulously designed to diagnose the systemic erosion of our reality, bypassing our real-world political tribalism entirely.
It really is a remarkable synthesis of concepts. The project takes the physical mechanics of arcade play, the psychological aesthetics of authority, and the insulating power of narrative, and it binds them all into a single cohesive diagnostic tool for the modern mind.
Which leaves us with a final thought to carry with you. The source tells us that interpretations, glyphs, and collapse protocols are being used in this fictional universe as diagnostic tools to understand our actual reality. So, I want you to look at your own life. Look at the overwhelming flood of information, the emails, the news alerts, the endless feeds you face every single day. What kind of personal mythic infrastructure do you need to build to make sense of it all? What is the structure of your own knowledge map?
Because if you aren't intentionally building that map yourself, I promise you, someone else's algorithm is building it for you.
You have to ask yourself, in the daily challenge of processing the chaotic world around you, are you currently just coasting in the slip flow, passively accepting whatever information is handed to you? Or are you willing to do the hard work of fighting your way through the counterflow?